The wagon lurched to a violent stop, throwing Deanna Campbell forward against the wooden seat as snow whipped through the canvas covering like frozen needles seeking flesh. "We cannot wait any longer," Marcus Wheaton shouted over the howling wind, his face red and chapped from the merciless cold. "If we do not move now, we will all freeze to death on this mountain." Deanna pressed herself against her sister Elizabeth, feeling the younger woman's shallow breathing against her shoulder. Elizabeth had fallen ill 3 days ago when their wagon train had begun climbing into the Colorado Territory mountains, and the fever had only worsened with each passing hour. The December cold of 1876 showed no mercy to the weak or sick. "She needs more time," Deanna pleaded, pulling the thin blankets tighter around Elizabeth's shivering form. "Just a few more hours and she might be strong enough to travel." Marcus shook his head, ice crystals clinging to his thick beard. "Miss Campbell, I have 32 other souls depending on me to get them through this pass before the full storm hits. The scouts say we have maybe 2 hours before this becomes a blizzard that will trap us here for weeks. Your sister cannot even sit upright." Deanna looked down at Elizabeth's pale face, barely recognizable beneath the flush of fever. They had left St. Louis 4 months ago with such hope, heading west to Fort Collins where their uncle owned a cattle ranch and had promised them both work and a fresh start after their father's death. The journey had been hard but manageable until they hit the mountains. Now everything had fallen apart. "I will not leave her," Deanna said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "Then you are both choosing death," Marcus replied, not unkindly. "I am sorry, Miss Campbell, but I cannot sacrifice everyone for 2. The wagon master turned and walked away, his boots crunching through the 6 inches of fresh snow that had fallen in just the past hour. Deanna heard him calling orders to the other families, telling them to prepare to move out immediately. The wind picked up, making the canvas snap and crack like gunfire. "Deanna," Elizabeth whispered, her hand emerging from beneath the blankets to grasp her sister's arm. "You should go with them. You cannot help me by dying too." "Hush," Deanna said, though tears burned hot against her cold cheeks. "I will not abandon you. Father made me promise to take care of you, and that is exactly what I intend to do." Elizabeth tried to argue but was seized by a coughing fit that left her gasping and weak. Deanna held her, feeling completely helpless as the sounds of the wagon train preparing to depart grew louder around them. Horses whinnied, children cried, and adults shouted instructions to one another. The Campbell sisters' wagon sat at the rear of the train, isolated and forgotten. Within 20 minutes, the first wagon began to roll forward. Deanna watched through the gap in the canvas as one by one, the family she had traveled alongside for 4 months disappeared into the swirling white landscape. A few people looked back, their faces troubled but resigned. No one stopped. No one offered to help. Survival made people hard, and Deanna could not truly blame them even as her heart broke watching them vanish into the storm. Then there was silence except for the wind and Elizabeth's labored breathing. Deanna climbed down from the wagon, her feet immediately sinking into the deep snow. The cold bit through her worn boots and the threadbare coat that had seemed adequate back in Missouri, but was laughably insufficient for a Colorado mountain winter. She needed to assess their situation and figure out what supplies they had. Their wagon was small, pulled by 2 horses that Marcus had unhitched and taken with the train, leaving the sisters stranded without even the possibility of following. Deanna felt a flash of anger at that but pushed it aside. Anger would not keep them warm or alive. She inventoried their supplies with growing desperation. They had perhaps 3 days of food if she rationed carefully, a small amount of firewood, two thin blankets, and Elizabeth's carpet bag with her few clothes and personal items. Deanna's own bag held even less, as she had given most of her warm clothing to Elizabeth over the past week. The wagon provided some shelter from the wind, but it would not be enough when the temperature dropped after nightfall. Deanna knew she needed to make a fire, but the wind made that nearly impossible. She tried 3 times, crouching behind the wagon and using their precious matches, but each time the wind snuffed out the tiny flames before they could catch. "Diana, come inside," Elizabeth called weakly. "You will freeze out there." Deanna climbed back into the wagon, her hands numb and clumsy. She wrapped herself around Elizabeth, sharing what little body heat they had between them. The canvas walls snapped and billowed, letting in sprays of snow that slowly accumulated on their blankets and supplies. "Tell me about Uncle Robert's ranch," Elizabeth whispered. "Tell me about the house we will live in." Deanna swallowed hard and began describing the letters their uncle had sent, painting pictures of wide open spaces, cattle grazing on endless grass, mountains purple in the distance under warm summer skies. She talked until her voice grew hoarse, until Elizabeth's breathing evened out into something like sleep. Then Deanna lay in the darkness, listening to the storm rage around them, and wondered if this was how they would die, alone on a mountain, frozen like the snow that buried them inch by inch. She must have dozed because she woke with a start to the sound of horse hooves crunching through snow. Diana's heart leaped. Someone had come back. Someone had reconsidered and returned for them. She scrambled to the back of the wagon and pushed aside the canvas, squinting into the white curtain of falling snow. A horse appeared through the storm, a large bay gelding with frost coating its mane. And on its back sat a man bundled in a heavy coat and wide-brimmed hat pulled low against the wind. "Hello," Deanna called out, her voice cracking from cold and disuse. "Hello, please help us." The rider guided his horse closer, and Deanna got her first clear look at him. He was young, perhaps 25 or 26, with a strong jaw covered in several days of stubble and eyes the color of summer grass that stood out startlingly bright against his wind-burned face. Snow clung to his dark hair where it curled out from beneath his hat. "You are the Campbell sisters," he said, his voice deep and steady. It was not a question. "Yes, I am Deanna Campbell, and my sister Elizabeth is inside. She is very ill. The wagon train left us because we could not keep up. Please, do you have medicine, blankets? Can you help us?" The cowboy dismounted, moving with the easy grace of someone who had spent more time on horseback than on foot. He tied his horse to the wagon wheel and climbed up beside Deanna without asking permission. His presence filled the small space, making Deanna suddenly aware of how close they were. "My name is Nathan Nash," he said, pulling off his gloves and reaching out to touch Elizabeth's forehead. His hands were large and calloused but surprisingly gentle. "I am a ranch hand for the Double End spread about 15 miles north of here. I was tracking some strays when I came across your wagon train's tracks and saw where one wagon had stopped and been abandoned. I thought maybe someone needed help." "God bless you," Deanna breathed. "She has been feverish for 3 days. She cannot eat, can barely drink. I do not know what to do." Nathan examined Elizabeth carefully, checking her pulse and looking at her eyes and skin. His expression grew grave. "She has pneumonia, I think. She needs warmth and medicine, neither of which we have here. The storm is getting worse and the temperature will drop dangerously once night falls." "What can we do?" Deanna asked, though she feared she knew the answer. Nathan looked at her for a long moment, those green eyes assessing. "I can take one of you on my horse. We might be able to make it to the ranch before full dark if we leave now. But I cannot take 2 people, not through this storm and not this distance. The horse would never make it. Diana felt her stomach drop. Then take Elizabeth, please. Save her. She is too weak to hold on, Nathan said bluntly. She would fall off within a mile, and in this storm we would never find her body. I am sorry, but that is the truth of it. Then what are you suggesting? Diana asked, though part of her already knew. I take you to the ranch. You get warm, get help. Then at first light, if the storm has passed, I come back with a sled and proper supplies to transport your sister. It is the only way both of you might survive. And if the storm does not pass, if it takes 2 days or 3, she will be dead by then, frozen in this wagon alone, Diana said, her voice rising with panic and anger. Maybe, Nathan agreed. Or maybe she sleeps through and stays just warm enough in the wagon with all the blankets and supplies I leave behind. It is a chance. But if we all stay here, we all die. That is certain. Diana looked at her sister's pale face, then back at Nathan's serious expression. Every instinct screamed at her not to leave Elizabeth alone. But the logical part of her mind, the part that had kept them alive this long after their father's death, knew Nathan was right. Staying meant death. Going meant a chance. I cannot, Diana whispered. She is my sister. I promise to take care of her. And you will, Nathan said firmly. But not by dying beside her. Come with me now, and I swear on my life I will come back for her. I will bring medicine and warm blankets and a proper sled. I will save her if it is humanly possible. But I need you to trust me and come with me now. Diana felt tears streaming down her face, hot against her frozen cheeks. She leaned down and kissed Elizabeth's forehead, smoothing back her tangled blonde hair. I will come back, she whispered. I promise I will come back with help. You just have to hold on. Please, Elizabeth, just hold on. Elizabeth's eyes fluttered open briefly. Go, she breathed. Live. Nathan moved quickly then, gathering all the blankets except one for Diana and wrapping Elizabeth as warmly as possible. He arranged the canvas to block the worst of the wind and left their remaining food and water within easy reach if Elizabeth woke. Then he took Diana's arm and guided her firmly toward his horse. We need to ride fast and hard, he said as he lifted her onto the saddle like she weighed nothing. Hold on to me and do not let go no matter what. If you fall off in this storm, I might not be able to find you. He swung up behind her, one arm wrapping securely around her waist while the other took the reins. Diana had never been so close to a man who was not family, and under other circumstances she might have been embarrassed or frightened. But now she just felt grateful for his solid warmth at her back, for the strength in the arm that held her steady. Last chance to change your mind, Nathan said. Once we start, we cannot turn back until we reach the ranch. Diana looked back at the wagon, barely visible now through the falling snow. She thought she could see the shape of it, Elizabeth inside wrapped in blankets, alone and helpless. Everything in her screamed to stay. But she thought of Nathan's words, of the promise he had made, and she forced herself to nod. Go, she said. Nathan kicked the horse into motion, and they plunged into the storm. The world became nothing but white wind and cold so intense it felt like fire on Diana's exposed skin. She ducked her head against Nathan's chest, feeling him lean forward over her to protect her from the worst of the wind. The horse struggled through snow that was now knee-deep, sometimes deeper where drifts had formed. Time lost all meaning. Diana's feet went numb first, then her hands, then her face. She could not tell if they had been riding for minutes or hours. The cold made it hard to think, hard to remember why she was here or where they were going. She knew only that she had to hold on, had to keep her fingers locked together around Nathan's waist, had to trust that he knew where he was leading them. Stay awake, Nathan's voice came close to her ear, shouting to be heard over the wind. Talk to me, tell me something, anything. I cannot, Deanna tried to say, but her lips were too numb to form the words properly. Yes, you can, Nathan insisted. Tell me about St. Louis. Tell me about your father. Deanna forced her frozen mind to work. He was a printer, she managed. Books, beautiful books with gold lettering. What else? Nathan urged. What did he print? Bibles, poetry, once a whole collection of Shakespeare. The words came easier now, her mind focusing on memories instead of the cold. He let me read them all. Elizabeth, too, said women should be educated same as men. Smart man, Nathan said. What happened to him? Cholera. Last summer. Elizabeth and I could not keep the shop without him. No one would do business with women alone. We had nothing left, so we wrote to Uncle Robert. He said come west, said there was room for us on his ranch. Said Colorado was a place where hard workers could make something of themselves regardless of what was between their legs. Nathan gave a short laugh despite their situation. Sounds like Robert Campbell. He is a good man, your uncle, tough but fair. The double N borders his land. You know him? Deanna asked, surprised. Everyone in these parts knows Robert Campbell. He has been running cattle through this territory for 20 years, long before Fort Collins was anything more than a trading post. He is probably worried sick about you and your sister. He was not expecting us until spring, Deanna said. We left earlier than planned because Elizabeth's employer made improper advances. I could not leave her there, so we joined the wagon train that was leaving in October instead of waiting. Brave, Nathan said simply. Stupid, Deanna corrected. If we had waited, Elizabeth would not be dying in a wagon in the snow. She is not dead yet, Nathan said firmly. And neither are you. We are almost there, just another mile. Deanna tried to see through the storm but could make out nothing. She had no idea how Nathan could possibly know where they were or where they were going. For all she knew, they were riding in circles. But his confidence was absolute, and she found herself believing him despite her fear. True to his word, buildings began to emerge from the white curtain of snow perhaps 15 minutes later. First a large barn, then a house, then several smaller outbuildings. Nathan guided the horse directly to the barn, and suddenly the wind and snow stopped as they passed through the wide doors into blessed shelter. Deanna nearly wept with relief. Nathan dismounted and reached up for her, but when she tried to move, her frozen muscles would not cooperate. She began to tip sideways, and Nathan caught her, lifting her down and holding her upright when her legs buckled. I have you, he said. Just stay on your feet a moment longer. He shouted something, and a young man appeared from deeper in the barn, eyes widening at the sight of them. Take care of Sam, Nathan ordered, indicating his horse. Rub him down good and give him extra feed. He earned it today. Then Nathan swept Deanna up into his arms and carried her through the snow to the main house. He kicked the door open and brought her into a room filled with wonderful heat. A fire roared in a large stone fireplace, and oil lamps cast golden light over sturdy wooden furniture and Indian rugs. Mrs. Henderson, Nathan called. I need help. An older woman appeared from what must have been the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She was perhaps 50, with gray-streaked brown hair pulled back in a practical bun and sharp blue eyes that took in the situation instantly. Nathan Nash, what have you brought home now? She asked, but she was already moving to help, pulling a chair close to the fire. This is Deanna Campbell, Nathan said as he set Deanna gently in the chair. She and her sister were left behind by the Wheaton train about 15 miles south. The sister is still out there, too sick to travel. I need to go back for her at first light. 15 miles in this storm, Mrs. Henderson shook her head. You will both catch your death. Let me look at her. The older woman began efficiently removing Diana's wet coat and boots, clucking her tongue at the inadequate clothing. You need to get those wet things off before you lose your toes to frostbite, girl. Nathan, you get yourself into dry clothes and then come back here. I will need your help. Nathan hesitated, looking at Deanna with concern. Will she be all right? She will live, which is more than I can say for you if you do not get out of those wet clothes. Go on now. Nathan left reluctantly, and Mrs. Henderson helped Deanna remove her soaked dress and petticoats, replacing them with a thick nightgown that was far too large but wonderfully warm and dry. She wrapped Deanna in blankets and placed a cup of hot broth in her shaking hands. Drink slowly, Mrs. Henderson instructed. Your stomach will not take kindly to too much too fast after being that cold. What is this about your sister being out in the storm? Diana explained between sips of the hot broth, her voice breaking when she described leaving Elizabeth alone in the wagon. Mrs. Henderson listened without interruption, her expression growing more troubled. Nathan is a good man, she said finally. If he promised to go back for your sister, he will do it or die trying. That is just his nature. Stubborn as a mule and twice as loyal. He has been working for the Double N for 3 years now, and I have never known him to break his word. Who owns this ranch? Deanna asked. The Norman family, father and 2 sons. I am the housekeeper and cook. We run about 2,000 head of cattle, which makes us one of the larger operations in the territory. Nathan is one of our top hands, saved up almost enough to buy his own land he has, works harder than any 2 men combined. Nathan returned then, dressed in dry clothes with his dark hair damp and pushed back from his face. He looked younger somehow without the heavy coat and hat, and Deanna found herself noticing details she had been too cold and frightened to register before. He had a small scar above his left eyebrow, and his hands, though calloused from hard work, had long fingers that suggested a capacity for gentleness. How is she? He asked Mrs. Henderson, though his eyes were on Deanna. Cold and exhausted, but she will mend. Now you need to eat and rest because you are not going anywhere until this storm passes, and when it does, you will need your strength. I should go now, Nathan said, moving toward the door. Elizabeth might not have until morning. Nathan Nash, you sit yourself down this instant, Mrs. Henderson commanded in a voice that apparently even cowboys obeyed. That storm is a full blizzard now. You would be dead within a mile, and then what good would you be to anyone? You wait until first light like you planned. That girl's only chance is if you arrive alive and able to help her. Nathan looked at Deanna, conflict clear on his face. She knew he wanted to go, wanted to fulfill his promise immediately. But she also knew Mrs. Henderson was right. Sending Nathan back into that storm now would just add his death to Elizabeth's. Wait until morning, Deanna said quietly. Please. Elizabeth would not want you to die trying to save her. None of us would. Nathan finally nodded, though he looked unhappy about it. He sat at the table, and Mrs. Henderson placed a plate of food in front of him. Deanna watched him eat, grateful beyond words for his presence, for the warmth of the house, for the simple fact of being alive. But guilt gnawed at her with every bite of food she took, every moment of comfort she enjoyed while Elizabeth remained alone in the cold. Tell me about your ranch, Deanna said to distract herself. How long have you worked here? Nathan seemed grateful for the conversation. 3 years this spring. I came west from Kansas after my parents died, worked a few different places before I landed here. The Normans are good people, fair employers. The work is hard but honest. I have been saving my wages, hoping to buy a piece of land and start my own herd eventually. Do you have other family? Deanna asked. A brother in California, last I heard. We do not write much. He wanted gold, I wanted cattle, different dreams. Nathan paused, studying Deanna's face. You should try to sleep. You have been through an ordeal and you need rest. I cannot sleep knowing Elizabeth is out there, Deanna said, though exhaustion pulled at her like a weight. Then just close your eyes and rest, Nathan said. I will keep watch. If the storm breaks early, we will leave immediately. I promise. Deanna wanted to argue, but her body had other ideas. The warmth of the fire, the food in her stomach, and the knowledge that she was safe combined to overwhelm her remaining resistance. Her eyes drifted closed despite her best efforts. She woke several times during the night, each time finding Nathan sitting in a chair near the fire, watching the window and the storm beyond. He had not slept at all, she realized. He was keeping vigil, waiting for the first opportunity to keep his promise. Dawn came gray and cold, but the wind had finally died down and the snow had stopped falling. Deanna sat up, pushing aside the blankets, and Nathan was immediately at her side. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Well enough to travel," Deanna said, though her body ached and her feet were tender. "Can we go now?" "You are not coming," Nathan said firmly. "You are going to stay here where it is warm and safe while I go get your sister." "She is my sister," Deanna argued. "I should be there, and you will be once I bring her back here. But I can travel faster alone, and if something goes wrong, I do not want to worry about you too. Please, Deanna, let me do this." The use of her first name, spoken so earnestly, made Diana's arguments die in her throat. She nodded reluctantly. "Bring her back. Please bring her back." "I will," Nathan promised. He turned to Mrs. Henderson, who had appeared with a pack of supplies. Food, blankets, and whiskey for warmth. Also some willow bark tea for the fever. If she can drink it, it might help. Nathan took the pack, settled his hat on his head, and headed for the door. He paused at the threshold and looked back at Deanna. "I will bring your sister home," he said. "That is a promise." Then he was gone, and Deanna was left to wait. The hours that followed were the longest of Deanna's life. She paced the house despite Mrs. Henderson's urging to rest, unable to sit still while Elizabeth's life hung in the balance. She watched the window, looking for any sign of Nathan's return, seeing nothing but white landscape and distant mountains. Mrs. Henderson tried to distract her with conversation and work, but Deanna's mind remained fixed on that wagon, on Elizabeth alone and cold, on Nathan riding through dangerous terrain to fulfill a promise to a woman he had just met. "Why did he come back for us?" Deanna asked suddenly. "He could have ridden past, could have assumed the wagon was empty or that we were already dead. Why risk his life for strangers?" Mrs. Henderson paused in her work, considering the question. "Nathan has a strong sense of what is right and wrong. He cannot abide the thought of someone suffering if he has the power to help. It is both his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. He will give everything he has to help someone in need, even if it costs him dearly." "Has he done this before?" Deanna asked. "Rescued people." "Pulled a child out of a frozen creek 2 winters ago," Mrs. Henderson said. "Nearly drowned himself doing it. Tracked down a lost traveler in a dust storm last summer, shared his water even though it meant he nearly died of thirst before making it back to the ranch. He is just built that way, I suppose. Cannot help himself." Deanna felt something warm bloom in her chest, gratitude mixed with something else she could not quite name. Nathan had risked his life for them, and he was doing it again right now, facing down whatever dangers the mountain might hold to keep his word. The sun was past its zenith when Deanna finally spotted movement in the distance. She pressed her face to the cold window glass, heart pounding, and saw Nathan's horse pulling something behind it. A sled. "They are coming," Deanna cried, running for the door despite having no shoes or coat. Mrs. Henderson caught her arm. "Let them come to the house. You will only get in the way and freeze your feet besides." Deanna forced herself to wait, though every second felt like an eternity. Finally, Nathan appeared in the doorway, carrying Elizabeth's limp form in his arms. His face was gray with exhaustion, and ice clung to his coat and hat, but his eyes were triumphant. "She is alive," he said. "Unconscious but alive." Mrs. Henderson directed him to a bedroom, and they settled Elizabeth on the bed. Deanna rushed to her sister's side, taking her cold hand and chafing it between her own. Elizabeth's skin was deathly pale, her breathing shallow, but she was breathing. She was alive. "The wagon had drifted some in the wind," Nathan said, accepting a cup of hot coffee from Mrs. Henderson. "Took me longer than expected to find it, but she was still wrapped in the blankets, still holding on. She is a fighter, your sister." "Thank you," Deanna said, looking up at Nathan with tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for keeping your promise. Thank you for saving her." Nathan looked embarrassed by her gratitude. "I said I would, and I did. Now we need to get her warm and get some of that willow bark tea into her. Mrs. Henderson, can you heat water?" The older woman was already moving, efficient as always. Nathan stripped off his wet coat and moved to the fireplace, building up the fire to heat the room more thoroughly. Deanna stayed at Elizabeth's side, talking to her unconscious sister, begging her to wake up, to fight, to live. Over the next several hours, they worked together to warm Elizabeth and force small amounts of the medicinal tea between her lips. Nathan stayed despite his obvious exhaustion, helping to lift Elizabeth so she could drink, using his strength when Deanna's gave out. Mrs. Henderson brought more blankets, more hot water, more tea. As night fell, Elizabeth's breathing seemed to grow slightly deeper, her color marginally better. Deanna felt hope kindle in her chest for the first time since the wagon train had abandoned them. "She is going to make it," Nathan said quietly, standing beside Deanna. "I think she is going to make it. Because of you," Deanna said, looking up at him. "You saved both our lives. I do not know how I can ever repay you." "You do not need to repay me," Nathan said, looking uncomfortable again. "I did what anyone would have done." "That is not true," Deanna said firmly. "The entire wagon train left us behind. Marcus Wheaton left us to die. You are the only one who came back. You are the only one who cared enough to try." Nathan did not seem to know what to say to that. He looked at Deanna for a long moment, something shifting in his green eyes, then looked away. "You should get some rest. I will sit with Elizabeth for a while." "You need rest more than I do," Deanna protested. "You have been awake for 2 days." "Then we will both sit with her," Nathan said, pulling a second chair close to the bed. "We will take turns sleeping." "How does that sound?" Deanna agreed, though she doubted either of them would sleep much. They settled into their chairs, and the house grew quiet around them except for the crackle of the fire and Elizabeth's breathing. "Tell me about your family," Deanna said after a while, wanting to keep Nathan awake, wanting to know more about this man who had saved them. Nathan was quiet for a moment, then began to speak. "My father was a farmer in Kansas. Good man, hard worker, but the drought took everything. He and my mother both got sick the same winter, and by spring they were gone. My brother Joseph headed to California, chasing stories of gold. I came here, figuring cattle were more reliable than hoping to strike it rich digging in the dirt." "Do you miss them?" Deanna asked. "Your parents, your brother?" "Every day," Nathan admitted. "But missing them does not bring them back. You just keep living, keep working, keep moving forward. That is all any of us can do." Deanna understood that better than she might have a few months ago. "My father used to say that grief is the price we pay for love. The deeper the love, the deeper the grief when it is gone. But he also said that did not make love any less worthwhile." "Smart man," Nathan said, echoing his earlier words. "You were lucky to have him." "I was," Deanna agreed. "And Elizabeth was lucky to have him too. He protected her, made sure she was educated, made sure she understood her own worth." That is why she could not stay in St. Louis after he died. Her employer thought she would be easy prey without a father or brother to defend her. He thought wrong. What did she do? Nathan asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Broke his nose with a bookend and walked out, Deanna said, smiling at the memory despite the seriousness of their current situation. The same day I received Uncle Robert's letter saying we could come to Colorado. It seemed like fate. Maybe it was, Nathan said quietly. They talked through much of the night, sharing stories and memories, learning about each other in the intimate way that only emerges during long vigils. Diana learned that Nathan could read, unusual for a ranch hand, and that he loved books almost as much as he loved horses. He learned that Diana had wanted to be a teacher before her father died, that she had dreams of opening a school someday where girls could learn more than just how to keep house. As dawn approached, Elizabeth stirred. Deanna was at her side immediately, taking her hand. "Elizabeth, can you hear me?" Elizabeth's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. "Deanna, where are we?" "We are safe," Deanna said, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks. "We are at a ranch and you are going to be all right. This is Nathan Nash. He rescued us. He saved our lives." Elizabeth turned her head slightly to look at Nathan, who had risen from his chair and now stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed. "Thank you," she whispered. "You are welcome," Nathan said. "How do you feel?" "Like I was trampled by a herd of cattle," Elizabeth admitted weakly. "But alive." "That is all that matters," Nathan said. He looked at Deanna. "I should go check in with my boss, let him know what is happening. You will be safe here with Mrs. Henderson. I will come back later to see how you are both doing." He left before Deanna could thank him again, and she turned her attention back to Elizabeth, helping her drink more of the willow bark tea and eat a few spoonfuls of broth. Elizabeth fell back asleep quickly, but it was a natural sleep this time, not the unconsciousness of fever and exhaustion. Mrs. Henderson appeared with breakfast for Deanna. "That man is half in love with you already," she said matter-of-factly. Deanna nearly choked on her coffee. "What? No, he is just being kind. He would have done the same for anyone." "Oh, he would have rescued anyone, that is true," Mrs. Henderson agreed. "But he would not have looked at just anyone the way he looks at you. I have known Nathan for 3 years, and I have never seen him look at a woman that way." "You are imagining things," Deanna said, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. "We only met yesterday." "Sometimes that is all it takes," Mrs. Henderson said with a knowing smile. "My husband proposed to me the day after we met. We had 42 good years before the fever took him. When you know, you know." Diana did not know what to say to that. She focused on her breakfast and tried not to think about the way Nathan's eyes had looked in the firelight, or the sound of his voice when he promised to bring Elizabeth back, or the strength of his arms when he carried her into the house. She failed utterly. Nathan returned that afternoon with news. "I spoke with Mr. Norman, explained the situation. He says you are both welcome to stay here until your sister is well enough to travel. Then I will escort you to your uncle's ranch personally. It is only about a day's ride from here in good weather." "We cannot impose on your employer's hospitality," Deanna protested, though she had no idea what alternative they had. "It is not an imposition," Nathan assured her. "The Normans are good people, and they understand what it is like to struggle in this territory. Besides, Mrs. Henderson likes having other women around. She gets tired of cooking for a bunch of rough cowboys." "I heard that, Nathan Nash," Mrs. Henderson called from the kitchen, making Nathan grin. Diana found herself smiling too, feeling some of the tension of the past days finally beginning to ease. They were safe. Elizabeth was recovering, and they had found help from the most unexpected source. Over the next week, Elizabeth's health improved steadily. The fever broke on the 3rd day, and by the end of the week she was able to sit up and take solid food. Deanna never left her side except when Nathan convinced her to take short walks outside for fresh air. Those walks became the highlight of Deanna's days. Nathan would finish his work and then appear at the house, offering his arm and leading her around the ranch yard, showing her the horses and cattle, telling her stories about life in the territory. He was easy to talk to, with a dry sense of humor that surprised her and a genuine interest in her thoughts and opinions. "You think you will like living in Fort Collins?" Nathan asked one afternoon as they watched the sun set over the mountains, painting the snow-covered peaks in shades of gold and pink. "I do not know," Deanna admitted. "I have never lived anywhere but St. Louis. The idea of all this open space is both exciting and terrifying." "It takes some getting used to," Nathan agreed. "But there is a freedom here you cannot find in the cities, room to grow to become whoever you want to be without everyone watching and judging." "Is that why you came west?" Deanna asked. "For freedom?" "Partly," Nathan said. "But also because I wanted to build something of my own. In Kansas, I would have been just another farmer struggling to survive. Here, if I work hard and save my money, I can buy land and start my own ranch. I can make something that will last, that will matter." "That is a good dream," Deanna said softly. "What is your dream?" Nathan asked, turning to look at her. "What do you want to build?" Deanna was surprised by the question. Most men never asked women about their dreams or ambitions. "I want to open a school," she said. "A real school where girls can learn mathematics and science and literature, not just needlework and music. I want to teach them that they can be more than just wives and mothers if they choose, that they have value beyond what men assign to them." Nathan nodded thoughtfully. "Fort Collins could use a school like that. There are not many opportunities for education out here, and most of what exists is informal and inconsistent. You would be providing a real service." "You do not think it is foolish?" Deanna asked. "Most men think women do not need education." "Most men are fools," Nathan said bluntly. "My mother taught me to read and write, taught me mathematics and history. She was smarter than my father, though he would never have admitted it. Without her teaching, I would be just another illiterate cowhand with no prospects." "Education matters, regardless of whether you are male or female." Deanna felt that warm sensation in her chest again, stronger this time. She was beginning to understand what Mrs. Henderson had meant about the way Nathan looked at her. And she was beginning to realize that she looked at him the same way. But she was also leaving soon, heading to her uncle's ranch, and Nathan had his own life and his own dreams. She could not let herself imagine anything more than friendship, no matter how much her heart might want to. Elizabeth was well enough to travel by the start of the second week. Nathan saddled 3 horses and loaded their few belongings onto a pack mule. The sisters said goodbye to Mrs. Henderson, who had been unfailingly kind and generous, and then mounted their horses with Nathan's help. The ride to Robert Campbell's ranch took most of the day, following roads that had been cleared enough to make travel possible. Deanna found herself treasuring every moment, knowing that once they reached their uncle's ranch, her time with Nathan would end. He would return to his work, and she would begin her new life, and they might never see each other again, despite being neighbors by Colorado standards. The thought made her chest ache in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. Robert Campbell's ranch was larger than the Double N, with a sprawling main house and numerous outbuildings. Deanna barely had time to take it in before the front door burst open, and a large man with gray hair and a full beard came striding out. "Diana, Elizabeth," he called. "Is it really you?" "Uncle Robert," Deanna cried, dismounting and running into his arms. He caught her in a bear hug that lifted her off her feet, then did the same to Elizabeth, though more gently given her recent illness. "I have been worried sick," Robert said, his voice rough with emotion. "When you did not arrive in the fall, I thought perhaps you had decided to wait until spring. Then I heard about the wagon train that came through last month, and I rode out to meet it, but you were not with them. Wheaton told me what happened, and I was preparing to go look for you myself." "We would not have survived if not for Nathan," Deanna said, gesturing to where Nathan stood holding the horse's reins. "He rescued us, took us to the Double N, and cared for Elizabeth until she was well enough to travel." Robert turned to Nathan, his expression serious. "Then I owe you a debt I can never fully repay, young man. You saved my niece's lives." "I did what anyone should have done," Nathan said, echoing his earlier words. "I am just glad they are both safe and well." "Come inside, all of you," Robert insisted. "I want to hear the whole story, and Nathan, you must stay for supper at least." "I insist." They went inside, and Deanna found herself in a comfortable home that was clearly lived in by a bachelor. The furniture was sturdy but mismatched, and there was a general lack of decoration, but it was warm and welcoming nonetheless. Robert had a housekeeper named Martha who appeared briefly to take their coats and promise a substantial meal. Over supper, Deanna and Elizabeth told their uncle the full story of their journey, the wagon train being left behind, and Nathan's rescue. Robert listened intently, his expression growing darker when they described being abandoned in the snow. "Marcus Wheaton will answer for this," Robert said grimly. "He had no right to leave you both to die." "He thought he was saving the rest of the train," Deanna said, though she still felt the sting of that abandonment. "I understand his reasoning even if I do not forgive it." "Well, I do not understand or forgive it," Robert said. "But that is a matter for another day. Right now, I am just grateful you are both here and safe. This is your home now for as long as you want it. You are family, and family takes care of each other." Deanna felt tears prick her eyes at her uncle's words. She had worried that they would be a burden, two more mouths to feed in a harsh land. But Robert's welcome was genuine, and she felt some of her anxiety ease. Nathan rose from the table after the meal. "I should be heading back to the Double N. It is a long ride and I have work tomorrow." "Stay the night," Robert urged. "Head back in the morning when you can see properly. I have plenty of room." Nathan hesitated, and Diana found herself hoping he would agree. She was not ready to say goodbye yet, not when she had just found him. "I do not want to impose," Nathan said. "It is not an imposition, it is common sense," Robert said firmly. "Besides, I want to talk to you more about the ranch operations around here. The Double N and I have been talking about possibly working together on some cattle drives, and you seem like a man with a good head on his shoulders." Nathan agreed, and Diana felt relief wash through her. One more night, she thought. One more chance to see him, to talk to him, to memorize the sound of his voice and the warmth of his smile. Robert and Nathan talked long into the evening about cattle and land, and the growing settlement of Fort Collins. Elizabeth excused herself early, still recovering her strength, and Deanna sat listening to the men talk, content just to be in Nathan's presence a little longer. Finally, Robert showed Nathan to a guest room, and Deanna retreated to the room she would share with Elizabeth. Her sister was already asleep, and Deanna undressed quietly, slipping into the bed they would share until Robert could arrange separate rooms for them. But sleep would not come. Deanna lay in the darkness, thinking about Nathan riding away tomorrow, going back to his life while she began hers. They lived close enough that they would probably see each other occasionally, at town gatherings or by chance, but it would not be the same. The intimacy of the past 2 weeks, forged in crisis and danger, would fade into polite acquaintanceship. The thought was unbearable. Deanna must have finally dozed because she woke to pale morning light filtering through the window. She dressed quickly and went to the kitchen, where Martha was already preparing breakfast. Robert appeared a few minutes later, followed by Nathan. "I should get on the road," Nathan said, accepting a cup of coffee from Martha. "Thank you for your hospitality, Mr. Campbell." "Robert," the older man corrected. "And you are welcome here any time, Nathan, I mean that. You did my family a service I can never repay, and you will always have a place at my table." Nathan nodded, looking uncomfortable with the gratitude as always. He turned to Deanna. "I hope you and Elizabeth settle in well. If you ever need anything, the Double N is not far." "Thank you," Deanna said, wishing she could say more, wishing she could ask him to stay, wishing she had the courage to tell him that she did not want him to go. "For everything." Nathan held her gaze for a moment, and Deanna thought she saw the same reluctance in his eyes that she felt in her heart. But then he put on his hat, said his goodbyes, and walked out the door. Diana watched through the window as he mounted his horse and rode away, disappearing down the road that would take him back to his own life. She felt Elizabeth's hand on her shoulder. "You care for him," Elizabeth said quietly. "I barely know him," Deanna protested weakly. "Sometimes that does not matter," Elizabeth said, echoing Mrs. Henderson's words. "Sometimes you just know." Deanna did not respond because she could not deny it. She did care for Nathan, more than she had any right to after such a short acquaintance. But caring for him and having a future with him were two different things. He had his dreams of owning his own ranch, and she had her dreams of opening a school. Their paths had crossed briefly, dramatically, but now they were diverging again. She would have to accept that and move on. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Robert put Deanna and Elizabeth to work helping run the household and learning the basics of ranch operations. Both sisters proved to be quick learners, and Deanna found herself fascinated by the cattle business despite never having imagined she would care about such things. Elizabeth regained her full strength and began helping Martha with the cooking and housekeeping. Deanna, meanwhile, began exploring the possibility of starting her school. She rode into Fort Collins with Robert, met with some of the other settlers, and was encouraged to find genuine interest in her idea. "There are at least 15 families with school-age children within riding distance," one of the town's leading citizens told her. "And that number is growing every month. We desperately need someone to provide proper education. If you are willing to take on the task, we will support you however we can." Diana felt excitement building. Her dream was actually possible here in a way it never would have been in St. Louis. She began making plans, figuring out what she would need in terms of supplies and space, thinking about curriculum and teaching methods. But even as she threw herself into these plans, she found her thoughts returning again and again to Nathan. She had not seen him since he left her uncle's ranch, and the silence gnawed at her. She told herself it was foolish to expect anything different. He was busy with his work, and she was busy with hers. They had no reason to see each other, but she still watched the road every day, hoping. Spring arrived slowly, the snow melting to reveal brown grass that would soon turn green. Robert began preparations for the spring cattle drive, which would take him and most of his hands away for several weeks. Deanna and Elizabeth would manage the ranch in his absence with Martha's help, something that would have been unthinkable in St. Louis, but was simply practical necessity in Colorado. "I will need to coordinate with the Double N," Robert told Deanna one evening at supper. "They will be sending hands on the drive as well. Nathan Nash will probably be among them. He is one of their best." Diana's heart jumped at Nathan's name, and she hoped her face did not show it. "That makes sense," she said, keeping her voice carefully neutral. "He is a good man," Robert continued, watching Deanna a little too closely. "Hard worker, honest, reliable, the kind of man who will do well for himself out here." "I am sure he will," Deanna agreed, not meeting her uncle's eyes. Robert was quiet for a moment, then said carefully, "He has been asking about you, how you are settling in, whether you are still planning to open your school." He seemed very interested in the answers. Deanna looked up sharply. "He has been asking about me. Every time I see him in town or run into him on the range," Robert confirmed. "Always seems to work your name into the conversation somehow. A man does not do that unless he is interested. Or unless he is just being polite," Deanna said, though her heart was beating faster. "Nathan Nash is many things, but falsely polite is not one of them," Robert said with a slight smile. "If he did not care, he would not ask. Just something to think about." Diana thought about little else over the next few days. If Nathan was asking about her, did that mean he felt the same pull she did? The same sense of unfinished business between them? She wanted to see him again, to talk to him, to find out if what she felt was one-sided or if he might feel it too. Her chance came sooner than expected. Robert announced that he was riding to the Double N to finalize plans for the cattle drive, and asked if Deanna wanted to come along to visit Mrs. Henderson. Diana agreed, perhaps a bit too quickly, earning a knowing look from Elizabeth. She dressed carefully, telling herself she was not trying to look nice for Nathan even as she fussed with her hair and chose her best dress. The ride to the Double N felt both too long and too short. Deanna's nervousness grew with every mile, and by the time they arrived at the ranch, her stomach was in knots. She was being ridiculous, she told herself. Nathan probably barely remembered her. She was reading far too much into a few polite inquiries. But then they rode into the ranch yard, and Nathan emerged from the barn, and their eyes met across the distance. The impact of that gaze was like a physical blow, stealing Diana's breath and confirming what she had been trying to deny for weeks. She was in love with him. It was too soon, too fast, too impossible. But it was also undeniably, irrevocably true. Nathan crossed the yard toward them, and Deanna dismounted before Robert could help her, suddenly needing to be on solid ground. Nathan stopped a few feet away, his hat in his hands, his green eyes locked on hers. "Deanna," he said, and her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. "It is good to see you." "It is good to see you too," Deanna managed, wondering if he could hear her heart pounding. Robert cleared his throat. "I am going to talk to Mr. Norman about the drive. Deanna, why do you not visit with Mrs. Henderson? I will find you when I am ready to head back." It was a transparent excuse to leave them alone, and Deanna could have kissed her uncle for it. Robert headed toward the house, and Deanna and Nathan were left standing in the yard, suddenly awkward. "How have you been?" Nathan asked. "Your uncle says you are planning to open a school." "I am," Deanna confirmed. "The community has been very supportive. I am hoping to start classes this summer once the building is ready." "That is wonderful," Nathan said, and the genuine pleasure in his voice made Deanna's heart soar. "You are going to be a great teacher." "How have you been?" Deanna asked. "Still saving money for your own ranch?" "Getting closer," Nathan said. "I have my eye on a piece of land about 10 miles from here. Good water, decent grass, room to grow. If I can manage one more good year, I might be able to make an offer." "That is wonderful," Deanna echoed, meaning it. "You are going to have a great ranch." They stood there smiling at each other, and Deanna felt the tension between them shift into something else, something warm and electric. Nathan took a step closer. "Deanna, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice low and serious. "I have not been able to stop thinking about you since the day I brought you here. I know it is too soon. I know we barely know each other, but I have never felt this way about anyone before. You matter to me. You matter more than you should after such a short time, but I cannot help it. Deanna's breath caught. You matter to me too, she admitted. I have been hoping to see you again, hoping you might feel the same way I do. And how do you feel? Nathan asked, moving close enough that Deanna could see the gold flecks in his green eyes. Like I found something I did not even know I was looking for, Deanna said honestly. Like I cannot imagine my future without you in it somehow. Nathan reached out and took her hand, his calloused fingers warm and strong around hers. Then, let me be in it. Let me court you properly, take you to town dances, come calling at your uncle's ranch. Let me prove that what I feel for you is not just gratitude or circumstance, but something real and lasting. Yes, Deanna said, the word escaping before she could think better of it. Yes, I would like that very much. Nathan's smile was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. He raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles, a gesture so old-fashioned and sweet that Deanna felt tears prick her eyes. I will do right by you, Nathan promised. I will work hard, save my money, build something worthy of you. I will prove myself, Deanna, I swear it. You already have, Deanna said softly. You proved yourself the day you came back for me in the snow. They stood there in the ranch yard, hands clasped, looking at each other and understanding that everything had just changed. The future Diana had been imagining, the one where she built her school and made a place for herself in Fort Collins, suddenly expanded to include Nathan. A partnership, a shared dream, a life built together. It should have been terrifying, committing to someone she had known for such a short time. But instead it felt right, like pieces sliding into place, like a story finding its proper ending. Robert emerged from the house a while later and found them sitting on the porch, talking and laughing like old friends. He took one look at their joined hands and clasped expressions and smiled. I take it you two worked some things out, he said. You could say that, Nathan replied, not letting go of Deanna's hand. Sir, I would like your permission to come calling on your niece. You have it, Robert said immediately. And you can call me Robert. I have a feeling we are going to be seeing a lot more of each other. The ride back to Robert's ranch passed in a happy haze. Deanna could not stop smiling, could not stop thinking about the promise she had seen in Nathan's eyes. She was in love, genuinely and deeply in love, for the first time in her life. Elizabeth knew immediately when they returned. Something happened, she said, pulling Deanna aside. Tell me everything. Deanna told her sister about Nathan's confession and her own admission, about the agreement to court properly and see where their feelings led. Elizabeth hugged her tightly, tears of joy streaming down her face. I am so happy for you, Elizabeth said. After everything we have been through, you deserve this. You deserve to be loved by someone good and kind. So do you, Deanna said, hugging her sister back. Your turn will come. Over the next months, Nathan was true to his word. He came calling every Sunday afternoon, riding the 2 hours from the Double N to Robert's ranch to spend time with Deanna. They talked for hours, learning everything about each other. They went on walks, attended town dances, and slowly built something solid and real. Deanna opened her school in June, teaching 15 children in a small building the community had erected specifically for the purpose. Nathan was there on opening day, proud and supportive, helping her set up desks and hang maps on the walls. You are making a difference here, he told her. These children are lucky to have you. I am lucky to have you, Deanna replied, meaning it with her whole heart. By autumn, Nathan had saved enough money to make an offer on the land he wanted. Robert helped negotiate the deal, and by October, Nathan Nash was a landowner, the proud possessor of 300 acres of Colorado territory. It is not much yet, Nathan said, showing Deanna the property. Just raw land and potential, but I can see what it will be. A house here, barns there, cattle grazing in the south pasture. A real ranch, a real home. It is perfect, Deanna said, and she meant it. She could see it too, the life they would build together. Nathan proposed on a cold November day, almost exactly a year after he had rescued Deanna from the snow. They were standing at the edge of his property, looking out at the mountains, when he suddenly dropped to one knee. Deanna Campbell, you are the bravest, smartest, most beautiful woman I have ever known. You changed my life the day I found you in that storm, and every day since has been better because you are in it. I want to build a future with you, a home, a family. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. Will you marry me? Yes, Deanna said, pulling him to his feet and kissing him. Yes, yes, yes. They were married in Fort Collins in December, surrounded by friends and family. Elizabeth stood as Diana's maid of honor, and Mrs. Henderson wept happy tears throughout the ceremony. Robert walked Deanna down the aisle, beaming with pride. Nathan's vows were simple but heartfelt. I promise to love you, honor you, and protect you for all the days of my life. I promise to support your dreams as you support mine. I promise to be worthy of the gift you have given me by agreeing to be my wife. Diana's vows were equally sincere. I promise to love you with my whole heart, to stand beside you through whatever comes, to build a life with you that honors both our dreams. I promise to never forget that you came back for me when everyone else rode away, and to spend the rest of my life showing you that your faith in me was not misplaced. They moved into a small cabin on Nathan's land, spending their first winter together building their home and their life. Deanna continued teaching, riding to the school 3 days a week while Nathan worked on developing the ranch. Elizabeth moved in with them temporarily, helping Deanna with the household while she recovered from a minor illness, and the cabin was full of laughter and love despite its small size. By spring, Elizabeth had received a proposal of her own from a young doctor who had recently arrived in Fort Collins. She married in May, moving to town with her new husband, and Diana and Nathan were left alone to enjoy their still new marriage. The summer of 1878 brought Deanna's first pregnancy. She was terrified and thrilled in equal measure, and Nathan was impossibly gentle with her, treating her like spun glass despite her insistence that she was perfectly healthy and capable. I just want to take care of you, he explained when she protested his hovering. You are carrying my child, carrying our future. Let me worry about you. Diana relented, allowing herself to be pampered and protected. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and in February of 1879, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy they named Nathaniel Robert Nash after his father and grandfather. Nathan held his son for the first time with tears streaming down his face. He is perfect, he whispered. You are perfect. I am the luckiest man alive. We are the lucky ones, Deanna corrected, watching her husband cradle their child. All 3 of us. 2 more children followed over the next years, a daughter named Rose in 1881 and another son, Thomas, in 1883. The cabin was expanded into a proper house, and the ranch grew from a small operation to a thriving concern. Nathan worked tirelessly, and Deanna balanced teaching with raising their children and helping manage the ranch. Life was not always easy. There were hard winters and dry summers, cattle that got sick and predators that took their toll. There were sleepless nights with sick children and financial worries that kept them both awake. But through it all, Deanna and Nathan faced everything together, their love deepening and strengthening with each passing year. Deanna never forgot that day in the snow, that moment when she thought she would die alone and abandoned. She never forgot the sound of Nathan's horse appearing through the storm, or the promise he made to come back for Elizabeth, or the way he had risked everything to save two strangers. You ever regret it? She asked him one evening as they sat on their porch, watching their children play in the yard. Coming back for us that day, your life would have been simpler without us. Nathan looked at her like she had lost her mind. Regret it? Deanna, that was the best decision I ever made. Finding you, saving you, falling in love with you, it was the making of me. Everything good in my life flows from that choice. I would do it again 1,000 times over. Even knowing how hard it would be, Deanna pressed. The lean years, the struggles, all of it. Especially knowing all of it, Nathan said firmly. Because I also know the rewards. I know what it is like to wake up next to the woman I love. I know what it is like to watch our children grow and thrive. I know what it is like to build something meaningful with my own hands and yours beside me. None of that would exist if I had ridden past that wagon. So no, I have no regrets. Not a single one. Diana leaned against his shoulder, contentment washing through her. They had built something remarkable together, something neither of them could have achieved alone. Two people who had almost died in the snow had instead found life, love, and purpose in each other. The years continued to pass, bringing changes both large and small. Fort Collins grew from a rough frontier town into a proper city. Diana's school expanded, and she eventually hired 2 additional teachers to help manage the growing number of students. Nathan's ranch became one of the most successful in the region, and he was elected to the territorial legislature, representing the interests of ranchers and farmers. Elizabeth and her husband had 4 children of their own, and the 2 families spent holidays and special occasions together, surrounded by laughter and love. Robert lived to see all his great-nieces and great-nephews, passing away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 72 with Diana and Elizabeth at his bedside. "You girls made an old man very happy," he told them in his final days. "I am proud of the women you became, proud of the lives you built. Your father would be proud too. Through it all, through triumph and tragedy, through growth and change, Diana and Nathan remained each other's constant. They celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary surrounded by family and friends, and Nathan stood to offer a toast. 20 years ago, I made a choice to turn around and ride back into a storm to help 2 women I had never met. It was the easiest and best decision of my life. Diana, you have made me happier than I ever imagined possible. You have given me children, built a home with me, and loved me even when I did not deserve it. I look forward to the next 20 years and all the years after that." Diana raised her glass, tears of joy streaming down her face. "You saved my life in that storm, but you have continued saving it every day since. You believed in my dreams, supported my work, and loved me unconditionally. I am the woman I am today because you came back for me. Thank you for that gift, and thank you for every day we have had together." The celebration continued late into the night, but eventually everyone went home and Diana and Nathan were alone again. They stood on their porch, looking out at the land they had built together, the life they had created. "I would do it all again," Nathan said softly. "Every bit of it." "So would I," Diana agreed, "though perhaps with a little less snow next time." Nathan laughed and pulled her close. Where would be the adventure in that? They stood there under the stars, holding each other, and Diana thought about all the paths her life might have taken. She might have died in that wagon in the snow. She might have made it to Fort Collins and built a completely different life. She might have never met Nathan, never known what it was like to love and be loved so completely. But fate, chance, or divine providence had brought them together in the most unlikely of circumstances. A cowboy had come back for her when no one else would. He had saved her life, and in doing so, had given her a life worth saving. They had 3 more children over the following years, filling their home with noise and love and laughter. Nathan continued expanding the ranch, and Diana's school became one of the most respected educational institutions in Colorado. Their children grew up knowing they were loved, knowing their parents' story, understanding that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a single choice to turn around and help someone in need. Nathaniel, their eldest, eventually took over the ranch, running it with the same dedication and integrity his father had shown. Rose became a teacher like her mother, opening schools across Colorado territory. Thomas studied law and became a judge, known for his fairness and compassion. The younger children each found their own paths, building their own lives, but all of them carried forward the values their parents had instilled. Diana and Nathan grew old together, their hair turning gray, their bodies slowing down, but their love never diminishing. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, a testament to the life they had built from that single moment in the snow. 50 years, Diana marveled as they sat together that evening, finally alone after the party. "Can you believe it has been 50 years? Feels like yesterday," Nathan said, his hand finding hers automatically, their fingers interlacing with the ease of long practice. "Feels like forever, both at once." "Do you remember what you said to me that day?" Diana asked. "When you wanted me to come with you and leave Elizabeth behind." "I said I would come back for her," Nathan replied. "That I would bring medicine and warm blankets and save her if it was humanly possible." "You kept that promise," Diana said. "You have kept every promise you ever made to me." "That is what I think about when I look at our life together. You are a man who keeps his promises." "You made me want to be that man," Nathan said. "You made me want to be better, do better, live up to the faith you had in me from the start." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the mountains, the same mountains that had nearly killed them all those years ago. But those mountains had also brought them together, had created the circumstances that allowed their love to bloom. "I love you," Diana said simply. "I have loved you from that first moment when you appeared through the storm like an answer to a prayer I had not even finished praying. I will love you until my last breath and beyond." "I love you too," Nathan replied. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Saving you saved me right back." They kissed, a gentle press of lips that still held all the passion and promise of their youth, and Diana thought that this was what happiness looked like. Not perfect, not without struggle or pain, but real and solid and earned through years of choosing each other day after day. The stars came out one by one, and Diana and Nathan remained on their porch, holding hands and sharing memories. They talked about their children and grandchildren, about the ranch and the school, about all the adventures they had shared and all the quiet moments in between. "No regrets?" Nathan asked as the night grew late. "Not a single one," Diana confirmed. "You?" "Only that I did not find you sooner," Nathan said with a smile. "But I suppose some things are worth waiting for." "And some things are worth going back for," Diana added. "Even through a blizzard." Nathan laughed and stood, offering Diana his hand. "Come on, my love. Let us go inside where it is warm. I have had enough of snow and cold to last several lifetimes." Diana took his hand and let him help her to her feet. They walked inside together, closing the door on the night and the cold, secure in the warmth of the home they had built and the love they had nurtured for 5 decades. In the end, that was what mattered most. Not the ranch or the school or the money they had earned. Not even the children and grandchildren, though they were precious beyond measure. What mattered was the choice Nathan had made to turn around in the storm, and the choice Diana had made to trust him. What mattered was that they had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. The snow had tried to kill them, had come closer than either of them liked to remember. But instead of being their end, it had been their beginning. The storm that should have taken everything had instead given them more than they ever dreamed possible, a life filled with love, laughter, struggle, and triumph. A partnership built on mutual respect and deep affection. Children and grandchildren who would carry their story forward. And most importantly, each other. Nathan had gone back for Deanna in the snow, and in doing so, he had found his future. She had trusted a stranger in a storm, and in doing so, had found her home. Together, they had proven that love could bloom even in the harshest circumstances, that promises kept mattered more than promises made, and that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. As they lay in bed that night, Diana's head resting on Nathan's shoulder just as it had on so many nights before, she whispered one more thank you into the darkness. "For what?" Nathan murmured, half asleep. "For coming back," Deanna said. "For not giving up on us, for loving me." "Always," Nathan promised, his arms tightening around her. "Until my last breath and beyond, I will always come back for you." And Deanna, safe and warm in her husband's arms, surrounded by the evidence of the life they had built together, finally closed her eyes and slept, secure in the knowledge that some promises were truly meant to be kept forever. The story of how a cowboy went back for a woman left behind in the snow became a family legend, passed down through generations. Their descendants told it to their children, and those children told it to theirs, keeping alive the memory of that first choice that changed everything. Because in the end, that is what love is. A choice made not once but every day in small moments and grand gestures. A promise kept through sunshine and storms. A commitment to go back, even when it is hard, even when it is dangerous, even when every logical reason says to ride away. Nathan went back for Deanna, and she went forward with him. Together, they proved that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the simplest acts of human kindness, and that the best endings are really just the beginning of something even better. They lived out their days in Colorado, surrounded by the mountains that had almost taken everything, but instead gave them each other. And when they finally passed, first Nathan at 83 and then Deanna just 6 months later at 81, they were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. Their headstone, chosen by their children, bore a simple inscription. He came back for her. She waited for him. Together they built forever. And in the hearts of everyone who knew them, that forever continued on, a testament to the power of love, the importance of keeping promises, and the extraordinary things that can happen when someone chooses not to ride away, but to turn around and face the storm for the sake of another human soul.